Throughout history, assassination has never been a random act of violence. It is almost always directed, focused, intentional. And more often than not, it is aimed at individuals who carry influence, people who are visible, who shift conversations, who represent something larger than themselves. Not because they are flawless, not because they are universally loved, but because they matter enough to be noticed. When we look back across time, a pattern begins to emerge. Leaders, activists, voices that disrupt the expected direction of society. Some were silenced, others survived, and in both cases, the event becomes part of something much larger than the moment itself. In the present, when something like this happens again, the reaction is immediate. People look for explanations. Some turn to logic. They point to security, to timing, to chance, and to be fair, those explanations often hold weight. There are systems designed to prevent tragedy. There are moments where coincidence plays a role. Not everything requires a deeper meaning, and yet, not every moment feels ordinary. There are times when an outcome feels unlikely, when something happens or doesn't happen in a way that causes people to pause, to question, to wonder if what they are seeing is simply the result of human control or something beyond it. This is where interpretation begins, and interpretation is where people divide. Some will say, it was prevented, that's all. Others will say, no, there's something more here. The truth is, both perspectives exist for a reason, because human beings are not just observers of events, we are meaning makers. We don't just see what happens, we ask why it happened. And when the event involves an attempt to silence someone, that question becomes heavier. Why this person? Why now? What were they connected to? What were they influencing? What direction were they moving toward? These are not easy questions, and they don't always have clear answers, but history shows something undeniable. When someone is targeted, it is rarely without motive. That does not mean every attempt is part of some grand design, but it does mean it is rarely meaningless. And this is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable, because once you move beyond surface-level explanations, you step into territory that cannot be easily proven or dismissed. Some begin to consider the idea of protection, not blindly, not without question, but in the sense that certain outcomes feel guided, preserved, as if something intervened, not to elevate a person to perfection, but to allow something unfinished to continue. This is not a claim. It is a question. And it is a question that has followed humanity for centuries, because survival, especially when it seems unlikely, has always carried weight. It forces reflection, it demands attention, it shifts perception. And whether someone sees that as coincidence or something greater, the impact remains the same. People stop, they look closer, they begin to ask what it means. But perhaps the most important part is not the event itself, it is what comes after. History does not only remember that someone was targeted, it remembers what followed, what changed, what decisions were made, what direction unfolded next. Because in the end, the attempt is only a moment. The aftermath is the story. And that leaves us with something unresolved, not an answer, but a realization that in a world driven by power, influence, and human intention, there are still moments that don't fully explain themselves, moments that exist somewhere between logic and something harder to define. And whether those moments are coincidence or something more is a question each person answers for themselves.